Hey everybody, welcome back to the Maple Grove Scripture Reading Podcast. Today we're getting caught up with the story of Abraham and how God promised that his name would become a great nation through his son. And we read about the birth of Abraham and Sarah's son, Isaac. Today we're reading about how God put Abraham's faith to the test. And that really happens in Genesis chapter 22, where the Lord calls Abraham and he tests him by telling him to sacrifice Isaac. He says, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. Now, I can't even really imagine. I'm not a parent. I can't imagine what that must have felt like for Abraham. He waited 100 years to have his son, and he's had probably 15, 18 years with him now. And God is coming and asking him, he's telling him to sacrifice this son, the son of the promise. But what's amazing about Abraham and his faith here is that there's really no hesitation. The next morning he gets up, he loads the donkey, he takes 2 servants and takes Isaac, and they head out to Moriah, where God had told them to go. And after a few days, he and Isaac are going to go up on the mountain. But here's where we see a hint of Abraham's faith, because he tells the servants that they were going to go and worship, and then he says, we are going to come back to you. And we learn later on in the book of Hebrews, I believe it's in Hebrews chapter 11, where Abraham said, the writer of Hebrews says that Abraham's faith was so great, he believed that either God was going to provide a lamb or he was going to raise Isaac from the dead. Now, Abraham's faith is not the only faith that we see here, I don't think, because I think Isaac himself had to have some of this faith as well. Now, we see that he's strong enough to carry the wood for the offering, so he's probably not a young child. Probably a little bit older, maybe, like I said, 15, 18, older teenager. He could have ran away. His dad's over 100 years old, so he's probably not moving super fast. But Isaac had to have some trust in this, trust in his father and trust in God, because he didn't put up any fight either. He just asked the question, where's the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, well, God's going to provide the lamb. But they get to the altar. They put Isaac on there. Abraham is about to go through with it, about to kill his own son. And the angel of the Lord stops him and provides a ram for the sacrifice. After this, the Lord renews his covenant to make Abraham a great nation, that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore, and that all the nations will be blessed through his offspring. Amazing chapter in chapter 22. In chapter 23, we see the death of Sarah, which is a sad thing. And you go through and you see Abraham honoring Sarah and burying her in the land where he's living, and people being very helpful to that. We move to chapter 24, where Abraham sends his servant, his name is Eliezer, to his home country to find a wife for Isaac. And Eliezer obeys, traveling to this home country of Abraham and arriving in a town where he stops at the town's well. And there he prays that the Lord would make his journey successful, to show kindness to his master Abraham. And in particular, he prays specifically that a young woman would come out and offer him water from the well and to water his camels. Right after he's done praying, Rebecca comes out and does all of the things that Eliezer prayed for. She was very hospitable to him. And so Eliezer realized and worshiped the Lord. He tells her everything, and then they go and visit her home and speak with her father and her family. Her father's name is Bethuel. Bethuel and his son Laban understand that what has happened is from the Lord and that she is to become Isaac's wife. Although at one point, Eliezer's trying to leave with Rebekah and head back to the country where Abraham and Isaac are. And Laban and her mother actually try and keep her there for 10 days. But Eliezer's not having any of it. And he says, do not detain me. I got to get going. And so they put it to Rebekah, and she says that she'll leave. And so they do. And eventually they rendezvous with Isaac, and she becomes his wife. So that was our reading for today. One of the things that I want to make sure that we look at today, and we can see that these stories really are kind of tied together. In Genesis 22, we see that Abraham is trusting God, even though he probably doesn't understand it. He's being asked to do one of the hardest things that I think that God could ask him to do in sacrificing his son. But he trusts. He trusts that God is going to provide. He trusts that even if he doesn't provide a lamb for the offering, he will bring Isaac back from the dead because Isaac is the son of the promise. And so he trusts God's provision. He trusts God's guidance. And the same thing with Eliezer. Eliezer, when he arrives in the town and he's at that well, he prays that God would lead, that God would answer, and that he would make his journey successful, show kindness to Abraham, and prayed specifically for his guidance. We need to do this as well. We need to seek God's will in our lives. We need to trust that he's going to provide, trust that he's going to guide us, and we need to be in conversation with him. We're reading his word. We are in prayer. We are seeking his will in our lives every single day. And so that's just my encouragement to you today, is to continue to seek God's will in your life. Try and be like Eliezer and pray for the Lord. Have the same trust that Abraham had. Have that same faith that Abraham had. And I think that will pay dividends greatly, because we're going to be chasing after the same things that God knows is best for us. And he's going to be more than willing to give to us. The scriptures say that we don't have because we don't ask. So let's ask. Let's ask, but let's trust that God is going to lead us exactly where we need to go. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll pick it right back up tomorrow in Genesis chapter 25. Hope you have a wonderful day, and God bless.